Yo, what's up guys, the Insane Game Freak here to bring you Durarara Season 2, Part 3, Episode 2 review. So this episode was actually probably more straightforward than the last one. I didn't really talk about the Celtic Guild at all last week, and that's just kind of because I guess you could say I forgot. So I figured I'd go ahead and address my quick thoughts on that, because it's a thing and it is carried over to this episode. I think the idea is cool, and now we just have multiple factions. We have, the factions are kind of different anyway, but what this video I want to do is, because of how disjointed Durarara has been released in Japanese and in English, some of you guys may have forgotten some of the plot points and histories of certain characters, and since this episode was more simple, I'll go ahead and explain Haruna, because she is shown in this episode like she was shown in Season 2, Part 2 also, but a lot of you may have forgotten about her because of her interactions with Anri. The only thing a lot of people remember is that, oh, she has psychic powers, but I'll get into her. I'll explain her when we get to her. This episode apparently has a theme of women. We get to see Chikage again, and we can tell that he's going to pay Kodaka back, so he wants to take out the guy who did a hit and run with him. And then we have Izaya busting out Anri for like a good about 5-6 minutes. Which kind of gets into Anri's character problem, is that because of how it kind of gets into the whole concept of human and inhuman, where it's like, Anri, you're obviously trying to distance yourself to protect them because of how different you are and how abnormal you are. The problem is that she's not recognizing that the other two aren't as normal as you think they are. I mean, she already knows about Mikado being a dollar and knows some of the history about that. So why are you fucking surprised? Like, you're trying to distance yourself, and there's really no reason to be doing that anymore. Like, there's nothing, and on top of which, you're worrying about them, but you won't do anything to help them. And Izaya is essentially, look, Izaya is a dick about it, but Izaya has a point. It's like, alright, you've just been being passive about everything. You haven't even associated with Mikado in a while. And, Masaomi's been keeping his distance ever since, the end of Season 1. But it kind of gets into the whole conflict. I was actually interested because if you notice in the scene before Izaya shows up, it's like Anri was about to explain Saika to fucking Erika, which is kind of surprising considering that, she hasn't even talked about it with Mikado and Masaomi. But I feel like Erika was going to be her way of building to that. And I feel like that's what she was going to do, and things didn't turn out that way, obviously. This episode also gives a further explanation to Kugaragi and her history, which this is probably one of the few times a character's story has been mentioned and explained without actually showing me flashbacks. The short thing is that Kugaragi isn't the girl's name. Her family, she ended up taking on duties because of her family situation for the Yodagiris. Her and the Yodagiri family have a pretty close connection, although it seems like the Yodagiri family doesn't give a fuck about anything since they're selling children and everything, and their obsession with the supernatural. Hey, another abnormal group. I wonder what the theme of the series is. Nothing is as it seems. We also find out that she's Ruri's aunt, which means, the way they explained it is that, she's Ruri's aunt because she's her mother's sister. So, yeah, she's her aunt. Which also just makes the situation more fucked up. You're trying to capture your niece and Celti and all this other shit for the sake of a family that she honestly, and it's obviously a job she doesn't care to do. She was forced to do that job because this episode also wants to outline how the freedom she gained through Izaya pretty much hitting. Well, I wouldn't say hitting. Well, technically she hit one of them with a car, but getting rid of her shackles, so to speak. Her shackles was the Yodagiri family. And even though she's still stuck with the duties of the Yodagiri family, she now has the freedom to do what she wants, which explains why randomly she decided to go buy a whole bunch of cat ears. I don't think Kugaragi is a bad person. I feel like she just got caught in a bad situation at a young age and didn't know how to get out of it. And now she's just kind of stuck in the role. And so she's kind of just resigned herself to be who she is. Although I still think it's fucked up that you did your niece so fucking dirty like that. Because you knew what was going to happen when you offered Ruri that whole contract thing at a young age. They didn't care. She didn't fucking care. So she's not like absolved of her sins, but she's just not as evil as you think she is. She's actually she's enjoying her freedom. But now to address the Haruna situation, which is brought up in this episode. To explain who Haruna is, I got to take you back to season 1, but this should be relatively quick. Haruna, the girl with the pink dress that runs into Anri in this episode, in the season 1, she was dating a teacher named Takashi. You should at least remember Takashi in some fashion, not by name, but because of what he did. When Haruna was with him, they were supposedly dating. Haruna didn't realize this, but Takashi was just using her for money. But she had became obsessively in love with him already at like borderline stalker status. Well, the other thing you need to note of is that Saika has daughter blades. It's not just Saika. Saika has children, they've been talking about all the time. But she has daughter blades. Well, Haruna came into contact with one of the daughter blades, but I'm assuming at this time and period, Anri was already had control over the main Saika. So all daughter blades can really do is fuck with the head. They don't make you do anything specific because unless Anri was giving orders, and Anri had no interest in controlling anybody. But she had already been driven half mad, mixed with the obsession problem she had beforehand with her teacher, and mixed with the insanity that is Saika. She kind of drove herself a little nuts and proceeded to attack and harass Takashi because of it. This ended up having Takashi move her to a different school because of which. Well, now we take place in current time, which is where Takashi is at the same school that Anri, Mikado, and Masaomi were at the beginning of season 1. Now, the reason why I say you should remember Takashi is because Takashi is the one who was sexually harassing Anri the entirety of season 1. Is the reason why they ended up meeting Anri in the first place, you could say. He was the one sexually harassing Anri. Well, Haruna didn't take that too well, because Haruna, ironically, ended up at that school too. And Haruna ended up gaining a hatred for Anri because she thought that she was stealing Takashi away. This is what leads into the events of the first season with her trying to kill Anri in her house and trying to kill Takashi and all this other shit. The short answer is that even though Anri got her in check in the first season, she's kind of gotten out of line again, and now has a vendetta / hatred of Anri because she thinks that Anri was stealing Takashi away from her, and has an obsessive love for Takashi still, even learning that she was being used by him because Saika's completely fucked with her head. That's one of the reasons why in this episode she goes, "Oh, I was looking for Takashi, but you work just as well," because she's still obsessing over Takashi and she still hates Anri for quote unquote stealing Takashi away. Also, that now that she knows that Anri has the main blade. So that was the other thing. She didn't know Anri had the main Saika blade back then. Now she does. So that might be another reason in itself. So that's probably one of the bigger climaxes of the episode is that, oh shit, Haruna just ran into Anri. And we already see from previews, I don't think a fight's going to break out from it, but you can tell there's an interaction that happens. Also, at some point, Kuguri ends up running into Anri. At least from what I've seen in the preview, which brings up a whole nother fucking can of worms that I don't know what's going on. Also, side note, Anri is the daughter of that news reporter we kept seeing back in part 2 of season 2. You know the reporter that was going around looking for his daughter? This is her daughter. This is his daughter. I don't know who Mr. Kine is, the guy that's in there in one of Kuguri's houses with Izaya and the martial arts girl. I've already explained my theory about the martial arts girl and how I think it's something relating to the Akasawa group. I think Izaya's whole group is not based for Izaya. They're Akasawa group members doing the Akasawa group a favor by working for Izaya. And Izaya is just kind of like... And Izaya doesn't really trust any of them. And then we get into the climax of the episode. First off, cute, salty moments all over the place. Adorables. Where's my body pillow, damn it? But that's besides the point. So yeah, body pillows everywhere. It's a beautiful thing. Adorable as fuck. And then we get to the biggest shocker. Now the girl from part 2, the beginning of part 2 of season 2, the girl who tries to kill Izaya in the hospital bed because of her relation, which is all the way back at the beginning of season 1, if I remember right, she was either within the group or a friend of the girl that was with that she was with when Isaiah pretended to be like a dude who also wanted to commit suicide, and they met together to do like a group suicide thing. And Isaiah kind of punked them both and stopped them from committing suicide, which is where her aggression towards him comes from. And that's what leads into the shocker of this episode. So just to be a bitch about things, she allows Haruna the freedom, by pretending like she got tricked, the freedom to go out and look for Takashi, which is why she runs into Anri. So she can go in there and steal Celti's head, which apparently Haruna had been guarding. And what ends the episode off is that Celti hears about some news from, I believe I forget Isaiah's sisters' names, but Isaiah's sisters are talking about I don't know why I was saying sisters. His sisters were talking about on the chat when he was looking for Anri. Isaiah's sisters tell Celti about some news report that's currently going on, and we find out what the girl who has the spiteful vendetta against Isaiah is trying to do. She stole the head and threw it out into the hands of the police to spite Isaiah, which proceeds to have Celti pass the fuck out, and that's how the episode ends. So the episode, as I said, was pretty straightforward. I'm curious to see how this is going to go. Based on the previews, we know a lot of it, we're going to see more Mikado Aoba, we're going to see more Anri stuff, and I'm curious about her interactions with... My interest is in Anri right now, whether it's going to be Anri interacting with Haruna or Anri interacting with Kujiri. But that's really just my general thoughts and comments, and if you guys want some more like background information on certain Durarara characters so you understand where they're coming from, just like I did for Haruna in this one, let me know and I will be happy to do so in each review so you can get caught back up. Because as I said, the way Durarara was presented in English and Japanese has made it so disjointed that you can forget a lot of these small little details. Like, Season 1 in America came out in 3 separate parts originally, and that's it. And if you bought the Blu-ray, that was still like almost a year ago. And then Season 2 has been split up into these 3 13-episode chunks that take place over the course of like a year and a half. So it's understandable if you guys forget a lot of this shit, because I would forget a lot of this shit. But please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. This has been the Insane Game Freak. Life's a game, play to win, and I will catch you guys later. Also, 60 frames per second video.